No, it's a false analogy. I'm objecting to the very thing you are typifying in this conversation. You are saying that religion is not a matter of making those claims to knowledge. Religion.
No, I said God isn't.
What are you calling God?
God is the intangible creator of the universe, in whose presence a human being can live, and according to whose dictates or will a human being can live in this world.
But what is your evidence for the existence of God right now?
I don't have evidence because it's not a scientific claim.
Okay, but unless you want to say,
oh, well, I shouldn't say it that way. I don't have proof because it's not a scientific claim. If you want a supporting idea, I would say my understanding of other human beings and my experience of other human beings, which leads me to believe that there's something more than material. My understanding of the design of the world, which leads me to believe that we're here not by accident. My appreciation of the fact that human beings, even though we are made of stuff, have consciousness. My experience of religious human beings and the way they live, and the fact that they live in harmony, to my perception, with an invisible order that gives them a life of a certain sanctity and holiness.
This is a general human beings generally live in harmony with...
No, I said my experience of certain human beings.
Many of those claims trespass upon the territory of science overtly. I mean, the claim about your understanding other human beings being suggestive of a divine artificer.
Is that a scientific claim?
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
I mean, is your understanding of mathematics also suggestive of a divine artificer?
No, it has to do with my experience.
Your ability to learn language?
Do you understand? It has to do with my experience of you. When I'm looking at you right now, you may assume that what I see is material, but that's not what I see. And it's not what I believe. And I think that
I understand it's not what you believe.
There's something in you that is more than you believe. I really think so.
This is
now, if you want to make that a scientific claim, you can. But I'm telling you, it's a metaphysical claim, and to confuse the two is a mistake.
Okay, you can add any metaphysics you want. This is constrained by our common sense in every other domain of discourse. I mean, just take, for example, that whenever somebody seriously represents his belief that Elvis is still alive, he immediately pays a price in ill-concealed laughter.
Right.
Now, then he could rattle on about, this is not a scientific claim, you know, when I look at you, I see you might be Elvis. I mean, he could do this.
Except that, you know, this is like the Bertrand Russell teapot analogy, right? That there might be a celestial teapot circling the globe. If you make a claim about the existence of a physical entity like Elvis or a teapot, yes, that is evaluated the way you evaluate any other physical entity. That's why I keep saying, and I will say it again, that it is not a scientific claim to say that I believe you have a soul or that God exists. If it were a scientific claim, then you would be able to evaluate it the same way you could get a telescope and look for a teapot. But you can't.
Let me ask a question that deals with, change gears on you guys here.
Yeah.
A question that deals with human creativity.
Calling Stalin an atheist is a false argument. He was not moved on the basis of his critical inquiry, on the basis of his lack of faith, to kill tens of millions of people.
I want to clarify that, because I agree with you, but I don't think you're addressing the point. The question is, can you in fact institutionalize this wonderful skeptical inquiry scientific basis that you assume?
But he's not suggesting doing it forcibly.
Nobody is suggesting a pogrom here. It's exactly what we do with Elvis. I mean, or astrology, or anything else that gets laughed off the dais. I mean, just imagine if, or it's what we do with any other god but the God of Abraham. Imagine a political candidate who was forthcoming about his belief in Poseidon. It would be a problem. He could not possibly get elected. It's not like someone has proved that Poseidon doesn't exist. I mean, that is Russell's teapot. You cannot prove that Poseidon doesn't exist. The question is there any good reason to believe he exists? The answer is no. It's the same answer for the God of Abraham.
Okay, question over here, sir.
Okay, Rabbi, do you think that the problem is anthropomorphic imagery of God in all the stories that we tell? appear to be just unfathomable.
The rabbis say that the Torah speaks in the language of human beings because they recognized exactly that problem. When you seek to express that which is not human, first of all, we're limited by our conceptual apparatus, right? I mean, how do you imagine? It's like when you read science fiction. So the creature has 3 heads, right? We can't really imagine something that is other than ourselves. And this is what I would say sort of I say to students, when you're 5 years old, you can't imagine what a 20-year-old is. It's far beyond your conception. Now, we are, in terms of God, far less capable of understanding God than a 5-year-old is of a 20-year-old. So we use very elementary images to explain something that is infinitely greater than ourselves. The only time it sounds silly is when you think you have to put God on a conceptual grid. When you say, well, obviously, there's no God, because, like Yuri Gagarin, the cosmonaut said, I was up there in space and I didn't see him. Right? So, all I can tell you is, if that's your measure, you'll never see him.
Yeah. So, now, let me...